Sup, nerds, I'm Wes.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
Today we're clanking our way through space. In clanking space.
That may be the best joke we've ever done.
If you haven't seen our review on Clank, you should go ahead and watch that. We'll have it down there. We'll have it up here. Check that out because we're not going to talk about... We'll talk a little about how they compare, so you should know what we think about Clank first. But I like this one a lot.
Clank in space is like, so Clank, there's kind of a lot going on. What if we had more going on?
That's true. They definitely ramped up the amount of information and things you have to do and the things that you can do in this game. There is original Clank, and then they had the expansions, the Sunken Treasure, and the...
This one came out before the Memories one.
Okay, so... But anyways, that added to Clank, giving you, a little bit more that you could do. And this, it, took all of the things they've done and put them in here. And then they give you an extremely modular board by having the three different
Three
tiles.
modules!
But they're double-sided.
I get that.
Putting
You
them in
could
whatever
combine
direction.
them differently.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
The other big change in this one is they added factions into the main deck, which kind of trigger off of each other if you can play them. If you get two of the same faction type and you play them together, some of them have abilities on the bottom that will give you additional actions or additional things to buy with or attack with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was kind of that in Clank with the companion, the subtype companion was one that I know triggered off of. And the thing is, they didn't replace that with factions. This is in addition to. There are still subtypes on the card, like prisoner and friend and enemy and program. So, again, it's not like they never replace anything. They just either re-implemented it or added stuff to it.
So in original Clank, there was a lot of parodies to Indiana Jones and probably other Indiana Jones movies. So in this one, though, I think the parodies come through a lot more, just because it's probably a little bit easier to do sci-fi space movie TV show parodies and make it funny. So it's really obvious Star Trek references and Star Wars references and Alien references and other references.
Fifth Element. Couldn't say references.
There's
Terminator.
Rick and Morty.
There's Rick and Morty. Mr. Meeseeks is in here.
Yeah.
Aliens.
What's the light speeder? What's that? Tron.
Yeah. That's Jabba the Hutt right there. 3 eyes. That
There's
kind of looks
Doctor
like Nibbler.
Yeah,
Has
a little
3
bit.
eyes instead of 1 eye.
Yeah.
That's Back to the Future. Wall-E.
No, that's not Wall-E. That's Ratchet and Clank, right? Or something. It's
What? Ratchet? It looks like the little things that are working on the pod racer.
Oh yeah.
No,
Star
yeah.
Wars. Yeah. There's
They're
so much.
There's so many.
Dark G-Do.
Yeah, did you do?
They're not even trying. But it's... Oh yeah, there's the Mr. Meeseeks
Yeah, there's
one.
Mr.
Android
Meeseeks.
Assistant. The thing is it's not... First of all, it's not copying, right? Because it's parody, but it almost seems like respectful parody. Because they're doing it as a joke, but also hey, this is sci-fi. This is what you and I all know as sci-fi. Yeah. So there you go. You know what I mean? I don't think it's making fun of.
No, but it's still done in a light-hearted, comical way. But it's not we're making fun of the Jedi. But it's it's Jedi. You know it's Jedi. I know it's Jedi. But we don't have to pay for it to be Jedi.
But legally, it's not Jedi.
They did fix one thing majorly for me, and it's the race to get the treasures.
Mm-hmm.
In the original Clank, Tom would always go in and get the first treasure and get out of there. Now you have to go and hack these terminals and put these little cubes down. You have to do 2 of them before you can even enter the space where all the treasure is.
Yeah.
So that definitely slows the game down and lets everyone kind of build a couple things in their deck. Because if one person gets the really good card and
it lets them move really fast.
They could in the original Clank just run down, grab the thing, run out, and everybody else is kind of still I only have 2 movement, and this slows them down. They can still move around quick because they got that move card, but they have to at least explore the board. Yeah, and then there's the warp tunnels and that warp path, which you can warp across the board. You can warp across down the middle, but then you get dizzy afterwards.
They both made mobility a lot easier, but also more complicated.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, but in a way that I thought worked really well. And honestly, it kind of negates that, I'm just going to get in and get out and screw you guys, because especially because they put the double steps up beside each escape pod. So in one of the games, I did get in and get out really fast, but then I got stuck right on the end, and I couldn't draw 2 move in one hand. So they had a few turns to catch up before I even got out and started that.
No, I thought there was more. I totally thought
I
there
did
was
too.
more.
And then I lost.
Now, granted, I was using the run in, grab it, and run out strategy a lot in original Clank. But I lost a lot that way, okay? So it doesn't even matter. I'm not going to do that anymore. I do feel like the best way to describe the differences in here is that there are a lot of small differences. Really.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that they add these red cubes on the track, that's really cool. That like
I love those.
yeah, those when the claw thing, whatever the big baddie monster dude, when it hits there, those go into the bag. When they come out, everybody takes a damage, and then it goes back in the Clank area, so they stay in circulation.
Mm.
The fact that you have these little crystals that also give you extra triggers, the triggers of the factions, the movement we were talking about. Again, no one thing makes that big of a difference, but all of them together, like these things that they're implementing wouldn't really work, I think, if they tried to implement all of those in an expansion to Clank, like base game. You know what I mean? Like that would be weird. It would be like too many little. It would seem fiddly if you were trying to add that to the base game of Clank.
They're like, here's a bunch of stickers, stick them on your board.
I don't even know, because honestly, with the expansions to original Clank, I thought they were all good, but I don't know if they were really just, like, I didn't feel like they added quite enough to be completely justified. Now, if you like Clank, or you love Clank, and you really want to have the more boards and the variability, I think it does a good job, but I think that going from Clank to this is the kind of level that I want an expansion to add to a game. So, and I see what you're saying, that maybe it'd be hard to add them, but I don't think, if they find a way to make it done well, I don't think it'd be bad, which is part of why I absolutely love Clank in Space.
No, I think Clank in Space is good. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that I think part of the reason why they made it a second base game, not just because of the theme difference, but because, like, think about how fiddly it would be to try and add all of that in terms of an expansion. Like, the reason why we tend to think, well, the reason why we think that the Clank expansions don't add that much is because it's easy to just, okay, replace the board with this. There's some new symbols on the board. Add these cards and add these tokens. So, like, it's just an add thing. But with the idea of, like, so not only is this different, but this is different, and this is different, and this is different, and we have to separate all of that. That would be real clunky.
It would have to be like a deck replacement and a board replacement, and then you're like, wait, I just got a new game.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, really. So I'm glad that they did it as a separate game, not just for the theme, but, you know, I bet you this was, at one point in development, they were like, ooh, what if we added this and added this and added this to Clank? And then someone went, this should just be a different game.
And I do think that it kind of, adding on and repeating what Tom said earlier, all the things that they added to this game, like, I was thinking about each one individually, and I was like, these little gems, like, I could take it or leave it. Or, like, the fact that you have to go and unlock the second side of the board, like, all right, that's fine. But adding all of them together really do make a Clank in Space justified to where, like, I would totally own both editions of the game. Like, no problem at all, because all those little tiny differences added up do make this a whole new game.
They added these gems, these little jewel crystals that really don't seem like much. Like, they're just like, oh, it could have just been a token. But they're piece limited, which is interesting because, like, you can go anywhere on the board. There's a couple places on the board where you can pick them up and you get them. And there's a handful of cards in the deck that it's almost like an extra trigger. Like, instead of, like, being a faction trigger or a keyword trigger, it's like, if you have this, you get to do something additional. And I think it's, you know, nice to have things like that. Plus, these are just cool. And having, like, a piece limited resource like that, where it's not like, it's not always going to trigger. And, like, I was hoarding them because I had a card that if you had, you know, for every one of these I got to draw an extra card. And other players were like, I want those, but, like, once I got them, I could hoard them and keep them away from everyone. So it's just a little thing that I thought was interesting. Not game breaking, not, like, revolutionary, just cool. At the end of the day, though, I really do like Clank in Space. I think it's gonna be better than, like, on my list. It's over base Clank and the expansions for Clank. Like, this is just, having the variability of the different boards, like I don't know how many combinations it is, having that variability of the different boards and having like it seems tighter, especially having to go around and unlock those the security things and racing back to the end. It still feels like Clank. I think it kind of hits you harder. The board itself, like having the cubes that do damage to everyone, locking down that track that lets you just zip out of there. There's a lot of interesting things that make this one better, and I think that if you like deck builders and you don't have Clank, or if you do have Clank, you should get this one because it's better.
I do think that Clank in Space is the superior Clank. It's better. But I don't think it outshines original Clank, such that, if you have Clank in Space, you don't need regular Clank. And definitely the reverse isn't true. If you have regular Clank, you don't need Clank in Space. Neither of those would be true. However, if you can only buy one, I would buy this one. I will say, and I said this in our review for original Clank, that I thought it wouldn't be great to be the first deck builder you show to somebody, right? Like, there's a lot going on. You want to start them off with Star Realms or DC deck building, something simpler. This extra for that, right? Because there's more than regular Clank is. Now, do they need to play regular Clank before this? No. Pedro, he hadn't played regular Clank. Rachel hadn't played regular Clank. And those extra things weren't extra things. It was just the game was explained to them, and it made sense. So I don't want you to ever feel like, original Clank was so much, then this is going to be even more overwhelming. You'll be able to handle it, no problem.
So Tom did hit the point that I was totally thinking about, that where like Star Realms is definitely your starter deck builder game. Clank is like a step above that, and then Clank in Space is a step above that. Again, if you are like a competent gamer, you've been playing games for a long time, no problem. It's not a heavy game. It's not a super complicated game, but it's definitely not like the casual Takanoko Catan player, like, we should play this one next. Maybe start them with Clank, because I think that you could totally handle Clank from there, and then introduce this one after that. I do think this is my favorite of all the Clanks I've played. Thematically, Space is just one of my favorite themes, space and like fantasy, medieval fantasy. So I think this is just a hit on that. My childhood is all sci-fi, so the jokes in all these cards really hit home for me. And honestly, I absolutely love Clank. I love most deck builders. And so, of course, I'm gonna love Clank in Space. And I really think you're gonna like it too. Which is why we're gonna have a purchase link in the description box down below where you can get a copy.
And hey, while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never
be bored.
Hey, Aaron said something.
How many?
I think it's
like 20 different combinations. I don't know.
I have no idea how you would do that.
No, there's 6 sides.
There's 6 different sides.
6 different sides.
Is it 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2?
No, because there's only 3 boards.
Yeah,
but
I think it's 3 times 2 times 1.
You could flip one of these, and then flip it back, and then flip one of those, and flip them both. So that's.
I think there's 6 ways.
There's more than 6 ways.
8. There's 8 ways. It doesn't matter.
It's a lot of ways.
But their position also matters.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're not gonna do it.